So, James Taylor inspired session. So I've got a little sequence for you that everything is going to build upon and come from. We'll start super simple and we'll just gradually add more and more in there. I'm going to try and keep it quite intuitive. So we're not going to be referring back to tabs all the time. We're going to be sort of building on top of the sequence in an intuitive way, and I'll focus in when I can. And of course, you guys can always ask questions if you want me to go over any bits. So our sequence is going to end up sounding something like... something like that. Okay, maybe with a few more frills in there as well. Let's get the basics of the sequence down, okay? So, first of all, our A major chord. That's our first chord, all right? Making sure you got first, second, and third on second fret on D, G, and B. Now, this is the first little James Taylor sort of idiosyncrasy. I believe James Taylor fingers his A major chords like this. He's got some really sort of unconventional ways of playing chords actually, which is interesting because it probably leads to certain phrases that he plays, but we'll come to that in a bit. This is how I play my A major. Obviously there's a million other ways. There's this kind of weird thing as well. I say weird, it's just weird to me. So that's our first chord in A major, and then we're going to go to a G major. Okay, and again, a million and one ways to play this one. I go with two fingers down here, little and third on the third fret B and E, and then first, second fret A string, second finger, third fret E string. Okay, and then our next chord is we're going to play a D sus, D sus 2 for now, okay, but this chord is going to get changed around a fair old bit. To do a D sus 2, if you just make your usual D chord, take away your second finger, so that you've got an open E ringing out. So you've got D string, G string, B string and E covering the G and B on 2 and 3. And then we're going to return to A. Okay, so that's the first part of our little sequence. Okay. So we're going to build on these basic chords, but for now let's just make sure that everyone is totally comfortable with that. So A major, G major, D sus 2, which is just a D major chord with that open E, and then back to that A. Okay, let's just do that around a few times to get the feel of it. We'll do again. 2, 3, and again. Nice, fantastic. So we're going to do that once round, and then we're going to do a simple variation the second time where we're going to go A to D, D to A. So okay, so nice and simple. So we've got A, G, D, A, D, D, A. Okay, I'm going to play that round 1,000,001 times just at this very early point so that we can all be super comfortable with those chords. So if you're a beginner and you're struggling with some of those chord changes, just aim for 1 or 2. Don't worry about missing them out now, all right? You can always go over the recording, can't you? If you're more advanced, then see if you can just focus in on getting the groove, because that's going to really help you. If you're really getting super bored and frustrated, then you're welcome to use an A mixolydian or a B minor to enjoy. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and nice long space after that. Fantastic. Okay. Cool. So what we're going to do now is just add a tiny little extra level before we start breaking chords up. If you are happy with an F major chord, it's nice if you can just get involved in this straight away, where you're playing an F chord on the 5th and 7th fret, which replaces your A. Move it down 3 frets to get a G, and then we can still play an A at the end. Okay, so we get this. Okay, if you can start doing that now, that would be wonderful. But for our beginner players, if you want to just stick with the open chords, that's totally cool. All right, let's go around a fair few more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and... Last time, and lovely. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working around and playing with. So, well, before we start looking at the right hand too specifically, what we're going to do is just look at the little chord voicings that we can play around with. So lots of lovely James Taylor patterns has just slightly different variations of chords, which can actually mean that they end up with like completely different or alien names, but you can kind of obviously see that it's just a case of putting an extra finger down, that kind of stuff. So to start off with, we're going to look at this D chord that I was talking about, which currently is a D sus2. Okay. Which is where we've got the open E. Now there's a million and one James Taylor things with a little hammer-ons and stuff like that, but there's also quite a lot of work with this 3rd finger up here. Okay, so what this means straight away is that we need to play our D sus2 with fingers 1 and 2, which can be a bit alien. So 1st finger, 2nd fret G, 2nd finger, 3rd fret B. And then your 3rd finger is now going to go onto the 4th fret on the D. Chances are you've played that chord. It's a very beautiful one. What it really means is that now we've got like a F sharp minor 6 or add 6, I suppose. But it's a particular chord that we hear lots. I think it comes in free falling a little bit as well. Okay, so this is going to give us a lot of options as well as we open things up a bit. But already, if we put it into our chord sequence, even played quite simply, it's going to sound a little bit more interesting. Okay, and then already a lot more interesting. If you're playing your little F chords, sounds a lot nicer, doesn't it, than just that plain D. Cool, so we're going to play around a few times with that extra chord in there now. But I wanted to show you it as a D first of all, because that's really where it's likely to have sort of originated within a sequence that's built around this. So we'll just play around as we got, see if we can get back in the zone a little bit. 3, 4. I didn't do it. 2, 3, 4. Around now. It's so much nicer, isn't it? A couple more times. Last time. Excellent. Okay, so if you're more of a beginner guitarist, you've got those chords that you can keep coming back to, all right? So as now we start to get a bit more complex, you can just stick where you are if you want. So first thing to change is the A and the G, all right? We've already looked at having an F shape played, all right? And we're going to call upon that, but not as full chords, all right? We can see there's some very famous James Taylor references that use kind of half F chords, all right, and half other shapes. And that's what we're going to do because it sounds lovely and actually it just makes things a little bit easier rather than always carting around a full chord, all right? So first off, we're going to start with the higher part of the F, all right? So don't worry about having your third finger on, just have your second and your first, all right? And we're going to maybe start with a little slide. As I said, I'm going to be a bit intuitive here rather than notating every single little bit. So I would suggest maybe sliding from 4 up to 6 for your A, F shape. Okay. And then down to your G, F shape. So your A, F shape is on 5 to 7. Your G, F shape is on 3 to 5. And we're looking at using G, B, and E. Okay, but we're going to have a little slide in there. Okay, however you want to do it. As I said, nice and intuitive. However you want. Just experiment a little. Now I'm using thumb on that G, okay, and using index and middle, which is quite a nice little way of working anyway, because you get this lovely sort of push and pull. Okay, and James Taylor has this beautiful sort of ebb and flow way of playing little phrases as well, of up and down in dynamics. So try and play with the dynamics a little bit there as well. Okay, cool. So our slightly more complex version, rather than just playing the normal chords, we're sliding in and using half F shapes. Okay, and the next thing that we're going to do as well is we're going to start picking out a specific note after in between chords. All right. Now, James Taylor might be doing something quite simplistic with his left hand, but we can hear lots and lots of melody going on. And that's not necessarily because something crazy is going on here, but actually seeing notes in between as kind of like almost extra chords, like a bit of melodic movement, can make a world of difference. So what we're going to do is we're going to play our, and then we're going to always play an open E. And that becomes part of the melodic movement. What are you talking about, Chris? Well, originally we were just going. Now we're going. Okay, that E really just makes it sound a little bit more grown up, doesn't it? Okay, and with our little slide. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Okay. So if you were using F shapes before, it might have sounded like this. But now it's going to sound like this. Nice. Okay, before we get carried away and start putting too much on, I'll just play that round a couple of times using all those techniques, all right? I'll also throw in the E in the second little way round as well. So that E really important, right? And again. Okay, and the chords over the top of that still just the same. Don't even have to do the fancy D, you could just do a normal D. Okay, I'll go back to there. So it can be kind of frustrating maybe if you're hearing that more complex bit and you really want to do it, but you will get there. You just need to take a little bit of time. Okay, I'm going to explain what I'm doing with my right hand here, or my picking hand. You don't have to do exactly the same at all, just to give you a bit of help. I'm actually using thumb, index and middle for this first bit. Okay, and then I'm moving thumb, index and middle up to D, G, B, and then using my ring finger to play the E. Okay, up to you how you do it. Alright, you can switch it around to your own thing, maybe using a plectrum, I don't know. Alright, well with that sort of slightly more complex version of it, let's play it around a few times and then let's put some really lovely little trills in there. Alright, I'm going to switch between playing the basic version just with the normal D, playing with the funky D, and then I'm going to mix up to playing that little slide as well. Alright, we'll go around a bunch of times and feel free to ask questions or go over little bits if you want, it's never a problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. Funky D this time for me. Do it like that a few times. Ooh, and I'm going to go to the more complicated. Lovely, nice, really great to see everyone working away there, playing it very slightly differently as well, which is great. Okay, so let's add some more little complicated bits in. The most obvious thing to start doing straight away is that we've got this little box shape sort of either side of our F. Okay, so when we go up to our F shape on the A, we can take away that third finger for now. All right, we've got the 7th fret on the B and the 7th fret on the E as well, which is just perfect for little hammer-ons. And then exactly the same as we go down to the G. Okay, however you want to play that. It's quite nice to use index and middle and pluck up and then hammer on to 7 on the B, for example. Something like that. Okay. Totally up to you. Just showing you little James Taylor inspired options. Okay. Fantastic. So there's that one. Now, what we're going to start doing now, and this is again for more advanced players, when we get to our little funky D or our F sharp minor 6, what we're going to start doing is using a bar behind it. All right, and we're going to then have this, okay, which is a lovely one. If you know a B minor 7, that's pretty much what we're doing here. Okay, so if you make your little crazy D shape there, and you just lay your first finger down to be a bar, just covering the D string onwards. All right, if you play with thumb, index and middle, you can take away your 2 fingers, hammer them on or hammer on pull off. And then we reveal a nice little A chord. There's a whole world of little melodic movements between that. So in our second part of our sequence, we can really just have fun going between we can just enjoy becoming a bit coordinated with the rhythm. Alright, and that's a particularly James Taylor-y thing. Lovely. Okay, there's quite a lot of stuff there to play with. All right, let's put one more thing in as well, which relates to when we've played free falling actually. So, and this is again for the more advanced players, so please, if you're more of a beginner, feel free to switch off, but at the very least, please don't feel panicked that maybe some of this just isn't achievable. So we started off with a D, and then we added this finger, which technically made it an F minor 6 or add 6. And we can play that down here, which actually sounds really lovely if you finger pick it with thumb, index and middle. So I'm just playing E, A and D. Okay. And that could sound really nice and simplistic and a deep variation. So for example, that second part of the sequence where we go A, really nice there. Okay. Now, something that we hear in James Taylor's playing as well is this idea or feeling that there's kind of almost not any that it's being sort of improvised, and there's lots of little beautiful variations, and to do that, it can be quite nice to know a couple of different variations of each chord that you're able to play. So that is a good example. And the second time, maybe going, yeah, it just gives us a little bit of a different dynamic place to go. All right, I'll give you a little example. You don't have to listen, of course. You could be just playing your own thing here. But a bit of an example of a more advanced way of playing it. So lots of different ways to do that exact same thing. Now, in my right hand, I'm tending to do like little stops, okay? When I'm not necessarily doing a full string slap, but I'm just muting the strings by touching the strings in my right hand to give it a bit of syncopation. Okay, and that can be a nice little touch to do that. All right, we've come a long way. We've gone from... then went to the new chord, then we started putting in the little F shapes, okay, then putting in that lovely E to get a bit of harmonic movement, and now we've got some extra chord shapes, and then to the low. Okay, so one, oh yeah, and we've got the little hammer-ons as well, haven't we? That's a really nice one to do. So one last little thing to look at is a simple little box shape again, which is nicely laid within reach of your A chord if you're playing it like that, or like this, all right? So you can put little lead fills when you're playing in this key on 2 and 4 on the D and the G. Okay, so for example, okay, so in that little example, I've played pretty much the same lick each time. So just hammering on 2 to 4 and then up to 2 on the G and just squeezing it in between. Yeah, kind of a simple thing to throw in, just that 2 to 4. All right, let's play it a few more times round and then we'll start looking a little bit more at the right hand technique. So I'll mix it up between 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going around like this solidly, I think. It's a little nicer, isn't it? We don't need that space. Nice. It's really lovely to see everyone just playing through and getting into it and trying different things over the top. I think it's really beneficial to play like that and just build on a sequence. So looking at the picking hand very briefly, okay, I've obviously talked about what I'm doing. Now, when it comes to a sort of a James Taylor way of playing, I guess the biggest thing that I notice, or that can just fit to all styles of player, is the dynamics of it, and this kind of first finger strum that comes in, which actually you see quite a lot of singer-songwriters do. Wrong way, Chris. Okay, and that's, so what I mean by that is where your first finger just brings in a little sort of dusting across the strings, and that might break away from your finger picking. So maybe you start off playing this. Ooh. And then as we start to lift it up a bit, maybe there's sort of less precise picking, and it's somewhere between picking and strumming using your first finger. Okay, and that's something that I'm witnessing him do, which I think is pretty cool actually. So if you've got your finger picking pattern, even if it's simpler than that, bring it up a little bit. Okay, but all with this first finger, this lovely little sort of somewhere on the continuum between picking and strumming. And I guess this relates most back to like when we talked about like people like John Frusciante, and where you're sort of, you're picking, you've got picking, but then you've got strumming, and you've got somewhere in between where you've got a really lovely sort of rhythmic, melodic way of playing. And someone like James Taylor does that very well, moving from picking to that first finger sort of dusting, and then right up to a full strum. I would say the difference being, you've got picking where you're using pads of thumbs and fingers. You've got that in between where you're just moving the first finger using the fingernail and the back of the finger. And then for a full strum, you're using the back of the thumbnail and the fingernails. Whole sort of continuum of dynamic sort of picking, from gentle finger picking with pads up to your actual sort of full-blown strum. And I think that's a pretty nice little technique to use, and at least you might actually do it yourself anyway to a certain degree, but actually to sort of focus in on it and see that, okay, here you're picking, here you're just sort of dusting the strings, and then here you're strumming. A load more with that. And actually I think that's kind of enough there when it comes to the picking hand, unless someone wants me to give them a really specific finger picking pattern, which I'm very happy to do. But actually I think if you can find your own little pattern, however simplistic or complex that is, and just experiment with going from picking to that somewhere in between with that first finger, then up to the full strum. It also gives the ability to sort of bring in, when we talked about that E string, so when we went from doing just this to going, okay, you might be able to pick that out with your more intricate strumming. just focusing on specific strings. That's really one for your own sort of discipline, really, to bring in. Okay, before we move on to just playing it around one little last time, if you're looking to put more little noodles and phrases in between, or you're looking to just solo over the top, then you're going to need some little scale shapes, which I'm going to throw at you now. It's an A mixolydian, which basically means it's a B minor. So if you know any B minor scales, you'll be able to use those now. If you know an A major scale, then all you have to do is flatten the 7th note. Okay, another perspective of looking at this is it's in A major, but the 7th note has been flattened to be a G rather than G sharp. Okay, it's a really lovely key for the guitar, because the one rubbish thing about A major is that all your open notes don't work. Well, they all do, apart from one, which is that G. So if I'm playing something in A major and I'm maybe experimenting or composing or soloing, and I end up just accidentally playing a G, I'm going to have to do that. It sounds really bad and awful. So when we go to A mixolydian, where we've got a G rather than a G sharp, everything is completely open, and it means you can play more sympathetically to the guitar, because all those open strings can ring out in sympathy. And especially when it comes to like fingerstyle stuff, James Taylor style stuff, if you've got open strings that can work in support, you can play more simplistically. That little phrase that I played there wouldn't sound half as good if there weren't all those open strings ringing out. It would sound a little bit tighter and more like lead guitar playing. So that's why A mixolydian really works very, very nicely. Let me show you a few shapes quite quickly, because this will be for the more advanced players. All right, I'll show you a little B minor shape here, because remember A mixolydian is B minor as well. So I'm using my first finger 2nd fret A string, up to the 4th with my 3rd, up to the 5th with my little. Okay, and then I do the same on the D string. And then when I get to the G, I just go 2 and 4 with fingers 1 and 3. When I get to the B string, I go 2, 3, 5. And same on the E string. If you want to complete the scale, because you just can't handle the fact that it's not ended on B, just move up to here. Okay? All right. Now, if you want to hear it sort of sounding A mixolydian-y, then you want to finish on the root note of A there. Okay? And in fact, if you just pick out melodies but always play that A in the bass, you'll get that lovely A mixolydian feel. Okay, so that's one little shape for you. Okay, the other one I'm going to show you is a more conventional A major, just converted into an A mixolydian. Okay, and it's going to go like this. You're going to start with your 2nd finger, 5th fret E, up to the 7th fret with your little finger. Okay, and this is all A major so far. Then we go up to the A string, and we're going to go 4, 5, 7. Okay, it's really crucial you start with that 2nd finger, by the way. Then when we get to the D string, now we're going to see it become a mixolydian rather than just the major scale. So we're going to go 4, 5, 7. Now to continue it, we can do all manner of different things actually. This is a nice way to work, where you then go up to the G string, 4, 6, 7. Okay, and then you move up onto the 5th fret on the B string with your 1st finger, change position. Okay, and then up to 7 and then 8. And then can finish it there on 5. Cool. Now, you can always watch the video back there if you're a little bit lost for the scales, but ultimately you can throw in those notes with the little chord shapes that we've been looking at to make very James Taylory sounding. Little shapes, or you could just play along now and solo along with what's going on. Woo! Okay. Here we go then. You'll just play it around a bunch of times, and I hope you enjoy whatever it is that you're doing over the top of it. Cool. So 1, 2. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed jamming along, folks, and all the little bits and bobs. I hope it sounded relatively James Taylor-esque. Yeah, just hope it was